My name is Candace Richardson, and 2 hours ago, my ex-husband Deshaun called me a pathetic loser on the courthouse steps. 2 hours ago, I signed the final divorce papers that ended our 22-year marriage. 2 hours ago, I walked away from that building believing I had nothing left except my dignity and a small one-bedroom apartment in Southwest Atlanta. Then my phone rang. "Mrs. Richardson?" The woman's voice was professional but urgent. "This is Jennifer Chen from First National Private Banking. We need to schedule an immediate meeting regarding your account." I almost hung up. I thought it was a scam. I was sitting on my worn couch, still wearing the navy dress I'd bought from the clearance rack at Macy's for the final divorce hearing. My eyes were puffy from crying. The tissue box on my coffee table was half empty. "I don't have an account with First National," I said quietly. "You must have the wrong person. Mrs. Candace Marie Richardson, former Candace Marie Thompson, daughter of the late Robert Thompson?" My heart stopped. Nobody had mentioned my daddy's full name in years. He died when I was 7 years old back in 1988. Mama raised me and my brother by herself after that, working double shifts as a nurse just to keep us fed. "Yes, that's me," I whispered. "Ma'am, we've been trying to reach you for 3 months. Your account balance currently stands at $47,200,000, and we need to discuss immediate asset management strategies." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the coffee table. $47 million. I sat there frozen, staring at the divorce papers spread across my coffee table. Papers that gave Deshaun the house we'd built together. Papers that gave him the car dealership business I'd helped him start with my savings. Papers that left me with basically nothing because his fancy lawyer convinced the judge that I hadn't contributed financially to the marriage, since I'd been a stay-at-home mom raising our 3 kids. "A pathetic loser," Deshaun had sneered at me on those courthouse steps just hours earlier, his new girlfriend Monique standing beside him in her tight red dress and designer heels. "That's all you ever were, Candace. Sitting at home, spending my money, contributing nothing. You're gonna end up in some roach-infested apartment eating ramen noodles while I'm living my best life." His lawyer, a slick man named Peterson, had smirked. Monique had actually laughed out loud, her acrylic nails clicking together as she clapped her hands. Other people walking past the courthouse had stared at us. I had stood there, holding my clearance rack purse, and said nothing. What could I say? Deshaun had the better lawyer. He had the evidence that made me look like a lazy wife who did nothing but watch TV and spend money. Never mind that I raised 3 children. Never mind that I managed our household, organized his business dinners, kept his mother company during her chemo treatments, cooked every single meal, and gave up my own dreams of becoming a teacher to support his dreams. The judge had looked at me with something like pity when he finalized the divorce. "Mrs. Richardson," he'd said, "I'm granting you 36 months of minimal spousal support to get you back on your feet. After that, you'll need to find employment. Minimal spousal support, $1,200 a month for 3 years, in Atlanta." I'd done the math in my head right there in the courtroom. After rent, I'd have maybe $200 left for food, utilities, and everything else. Deshaun had actually smiled when the judge said that. Now I picked up my phone with shaking hands. "Hello? Mrs. Richardson? Are you still there?" Jennifer Chen's voice brought me back to reality. "I'm here," I managed to say. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. $47 million? There must be a mistake." "There's no mistake, ma'am. Your father, Robert Thompson, established a trust fund in 1987, shortly before his death. He invested in several technology companies and real estate properties. The trust was structured to remain untouched until it reached a certain value, and to be released to you upon your 45th birthday or upon a major life change such as divorce. The divorce triggered the early release clause. My father, Daddy, I barely remembered him except for his laugh and the way he used to call me his little princess. Mama never talked about him much after he died. She said it hurt too much to remember. My birthday is in 3 months, I said, My voice barely a whisper. I'll be 45 in January. Yes, ma'am. The trust would have released automatically then. However, because you filed for divorce, our system flagged it for immediate review and release. We've been trying to contact you, but all our letters were sent to your old address. The house. Deshawn's house now. He must have gotten all those letters. He must have... Oh my God. The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of the couch to steady myself. Mrs. Richardson? Are you all right? Should I call someone? When? I said slowly, each word feeling like I was pushing it through concrete. When did you send the first letter? Let me check. I heard keyboard clicking. The first notification was sent on July 15th. July 15th. 3 days before Deshawn suddenly announced he wanted a divorce. 3 days before he told me he'd fallen out of love with me and wanted to start a new life. 3 days before he moved out and moved Monique into an apartment downtown. Mrs. Richardson? I thought about the divorce proceedings, how Deshawn's lawyer had pushed for a quick settlement, how they'd pressured me to sign papers fast, how Deshawn had insisted we didn't need to do a full asset disclosure because we both know what we have. How his lawyer had actually told the judge that I was trying to delay the proceedings because I was bitter and vindictive. I thought about how Deshawn had smiled when I signed the final papers today, how he'd looked almost relieved, how he'd rushed to say those cruel words and walk away quickly, like he wanted me gone before something happened. He knew. Deshawn knew about the money. He'd seen the letters. He'd known about my trust fund. And he'd orchestrated this entire divorce to make sure he got everything we'd built together while I got nothing, and he'd timed it to happen right before I got access to $47 million. That's why he'd been so cruel. That's why he'd worked so hard to paint me as worthless and lazy. He wanted to break me down so completely that I'd just sign whatever papers he put in front of me and go away quietly. Mrs. Richardson, I really think we should meet in person tomorrow morning. There are documents you need to sign and we need to discuss your investment strategy. Can you come to our office at 9 a.m.? Yes, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own anymore. It sounded stronger, clearer. Yes, I'll be there. Excellent. I'll email you the address and... Ms. Chen, I interrupted her. One more question. In those letters you sent to my old address, did they mention the amount? The $47 million? Yes, ma'am. The first letter included the full account details. Thank you, I said quietly. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up and sat there in the silence of my tiny apartment. The afternoon sun was setting, casting long shadows across my living room. I could hear my neighbor's TV through the thin walls. I could smell someone cooking collard greens in another apartment. $47 million. Deshawn knew. He'd seen those letters. He'd known I was about to become rich. And instead of telling me, instead of being happy for me, instead of being a decent human being, he'd plotted to destroy me. He'd rushed the divorce. He'd taken everything. He'd humiliated me in public. He'd called me pathetic and worthless. All so I wouldn't have time to find out the truth before he secured his claim to everything we'd built together. My phone buzzed. It was my best friend Tamika. Girl, you okay? I've been worried sick about you since that courthouse mess this morning. I opened my mouth to tell her everything, but something stopped me. Some instinct told me to wait, to think, to plan. I'm okay, Tam, I said instead. Just tired. That man is pure evil, Candy. The way he talked to you, and that lawyer of his. And don't get me started on that trashy Monique. Tamika was getting worked up. But you know what? God sees everything. What goes around comes around. Deshawn gonna get his one day. Yes, I said softly, looking at the divorce papers on my coffee table. Papers that Deshawn thought had destroyed me. Papers that he thought had left me with nothing. Yes, he will. We talked for a few more minutes before I told Tamika I needed to rest. After I hung up, I sat there in the growing darkness, not bothering to turn on any lights. I thought about my 3 children. Jasmine, who was 21 and in college, Marcus Jr., who was 19 and working at his daddy's dealership. And little Destiny, who was 16 and living with Deshawn because the judge thought she needed stability and my one-bedroom apartment wasn't suitable for a teenage girl. I thought about how they'd looked at me in the courtroom. Jasmine had seemed uncomfortable but hadn't said anything. Marcus Jr. had actually nodded when his father's lawyer called me financially dependent. And Destiny had been on her phone the entire time, barely looking up. They'd believed their father. They'd believed I was worthless. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Mama, it's Destiny. Dad said I need to get my winter clothes from your place. I'll come by next week sometime. He said don't try to call me because I need space from your drama." I stared at that text for a long time. My own daughter, calling me dramatic, treating me like an inconvenience. I thought about the years I'd spent raising her, the nights I stayed up when she was sick, the school projects I helped with, the dance recitals I never missed, the conversations we'd had about boys and friends and life. All of that erased, because her father had spent months poisoning her against me. I stood up and walked to my bedroom. It was small, barely big enough for the double bed I'd bought at a thrift store. My clothes hung in a tiny closet. Everything I owned in the world fit in this small apartment. Or at least, that's what Deshawn thought. I looked at myself in the mirror above my dresser. A 44-year-old black woman with natural hair that I'd stopped straightening when Deshawn moved out because I couldn't afford the salon anymore. Dark circles under my eyes from stress and crying, a few extra pounds from emotional eating, wearing a cheap dress from the clearance rack. This was the woman Deshawn had called pathetic. The woman he'd thrown away like garbage. The woman he'd tried to destroy completely. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd underestimated me. I pulled out my laptop, the old one I'd had since before the marriage, and opened a new document. Then I started writing down everything I knew. Every date, every conversation, every time Deshawn had pushed for a quick settlement. Every letter that must have come to the house that he'd hidden from me. Tomorrow, I would go to First National Private Banking and claim what was mine. But that was just the beginning. Because Deshawn had played a game, thinking I was too broken to fight back. He'd taken everything from me, including my children's respect. He'd humiliated me publicly. He'd tried to leave me with nothing. Now it was my turn. I opened my email and found the message from Jennifer Chen with the bank's address. Then I searched for something else. Divorce lawyers. Not the free legal aid lawyer who'd barely looked at my case. Real lawyers. The kind who could tear apart a divorce settlement that was based on lies. The kind who could prove that Deshawn had committed fraud by hiding the existence of my trust fund during our divorce proceedings. My phone rang again. This time it was Deshawn himself. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "What do you want?" I asked. "Just calling to make sure you're settling into your new place, Candy." His voice was mocking. I could hear Monique laughing in the background. "Not too lonely in that little apartment, is it?" "Hey, I was thinking, since you're going to be struggling financially, maybe you could clean houses or something. I could ask around, see if any of my business contacts need a maid." A maid. He wanted me to be a maid. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. The old Candace would have cried. The old Candace would have hung up and sobbed into her pillow. But something had changed in me in the last hour. Maybe it was knowing I had $47 million. Maybe it was finally seeing clearly who Deshawn really was. Maybe it was just 22 years of mistreatment finally reaching a breaking point. "That's really thoughtful of you, Deshawn," I said calmly. "But I think I'll be just fine." "Whatever helps you sleep at night, babe. Oh, and Destiny said she needs to get her stuff from your place. Make sure you're actually there when she comes by. Don't make my daughter waste her time." "I'll make sure I'm here," I said. "Good. Well, I got to go. Monique and I are heading to a nice dinner downtown. Steakhouse. You remember those, right? Back when you used to eat good food instead of whatever poor people eat." He laughed at his own joke. "Enjoy your dinner," I said, and hung up before he could say anything else. I sat back down at my laptop and continued my research. Divorce law in Georgia, fraud in divorce proceedings, hidden assets, trust funds. The more I read, the clearer everything became. Deshaun had committed fraud by hiding the letters about my trust fund, by rushing the divorce, by lying about our financial situation. He'd broken the law. And in Georgia, that meant the divorce settlement could be challenged and possibly overturned entirely. I found a law firm's website, Sterling and Associates. Their specialty was high-net-worth divorces and fraud cases. The lead attorney was a black woman named Patricia Sterling. Her photo showed a confident, professional woman in her 50s. Her biography said she'd won several major cases against wealthy men who'd tried to hide assets during divorce. It was almost 8 p.m., but I filled out their contact form anyway, explaining my situation briefly. I didn't expect to hear back until Monday at the earliest. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. Patricia Sterling herself. "Mrs. Richardson, this is Patricia Sterling. I just saw your contact form. Are you available to talk right now?" My heart started racing. "Yes, I am." "Good. Tell me everything and don't leave anything out. Start from the beginning." I talked for an hour. I told her about the marriage, the divorce, Deshaun's sudden change, the rushed proceedings, the humiliation at the courthouse, and then the call from the bank. I told her about the letters that must have been sent to my old address. I told her about Deshaun's phone call tonight, mocking me, telling me to be a maid. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Mrs. Richardson," Patricia finally said, and her voice was sharp with controlled anger. "What your ex-husband did is one of the most clear-cut cases of divorce fraud I've seen in 20 years of practice. He knowingly hid a major asset, your asset, during divorce proceedings. He rushed the settlement specifically to prevent you from discovering the truth. And he benefited enormously by taking marital assets he wouldn't have gotten if the court had known about your trust fund." "Can we do anything about it?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. "Can we do anything?" Patricia laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Mrs. Richardson, by the time I'm done, Deshaun is going to wish he'd never met you. We're going to file an emergency motion to set aside the entire divorce settlement based on fraud and material misrepresentation. We're going to get back every single thing he took from you. The house, the business, everything. And then we're going to sue him personally for damages." "How much will this cost?" I asked quietly. "I don't have access to the trust money yet, not until I sign the papers tomorrow, and even then—" "I'll work on contingency," Patricia cut me off, "meaning I don't get paid unless we win, and then my fee comes from what we recover. Mrs. Richardson, I want this case. Men like your ex-husband think they can destroy women and walk away laughing. I make it my mission to prove them wrong." For the first time since that morning, I felt something unfamiliar. It took me a moment to recognize what it was. Hope. "When can we start?" I asked. "I'll start drafting the motion tonight. You come to my office Monday morning, 9 a.m. Bring every document you have, every email, text message, everything. In the meantime, I need you to do something very important." "What?" "Don't tell anyone about the trust fund. Not your friends, not your children, no one. And especially don't let Deshaun know you've discovered his fraud. Let him think he won. Let him think you're broken and defeated. Can you do that?" I thought about Deshaun's mocking voice on the phone. I thought about him calling me pathetic. I thought about Destiny's cold text. I thought about standing on those courthouse steps this morning, believing I had nothing. "Yes," I said firmly, "I can do that." "Good. One more thing, Mrs. Richardson. This is going to get ugly. Deshaun is going to fight hard when he realizes what's happening. He might turn your children further against you. He might try to intimidate you or make you look bad publicly. His girlfriend might harass you. Are you prepared for that?" I looked around my tiny apartment, at my thrift store furniture and clearance rack clothes, at the life Deshaun thought he'd condemned me to. "Ms. Sterling," I said slowly, "I've been preparing for this my whole marriage. I just didn't know it. She laughed, a real laugh this time. I think we're going to work very well together. I'll see you Monday morning. After we hung up, I sat there in the dark for a long time. Tomorrow I would go to the bank and officially claim my $47 million. Monday, I would start the process of destroying the man who'd tried to destroy me. But tonight, I let myself cry one last time. Not because I was sad or defeated, but because I was finally free. I cried for the young woman I'd been at 22, full of dreams, who'd given up everything for a man who never deserved her. I cried for all the years I'd wasted believing I was worthless. I cried for my children, who'd been poisoned against their own mother. And then I dried my tears because I was done crying. Deshaun had called me pathetic. He'd called me a loser. He'd tried to leave me with nothing. Tomorrow he would learn the most important lesson of his life. Never underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. Except, I wasn't the one with nothing to lose anymore. He was. Friday morning, I woke up at 6 a.m., even though my appointment at First National Private Banking wasn't until 9. I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing with everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. I showered and stood in front of my tiny closet, looking at my clothes. Everything I owned was either old or cheap or both. For a moment, I felt that familiar shame creeping in, the feeling that I wasn't good enough. Then I remembered. $47 million. I put on my best outfit, a simple black dress I'd worn to church last year, and did my hair in a neat bun. I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't look like a millionaire, but I didn't need to look like one yet. The bank was in Buckhead, the wealthy part of Atlanta. I took 2 buses to get there, passing by neighborhoods I'd never be able to afford, or at least, neighborhoods I'd thought I could never afford. First National Private Banking didn't look like a regular bank. It was in a tall glass building with a doorman. When I walked in, a receptionist in an expensive suit smiled at me. "Can I help you?" "I have an appointment with Jennifer Chen," I said, trying to sound confident. "Mrs. Richardson?" The receptionist's smile got bigger. "Of course. Ms. Chen is expecting you. Please, follow me." She led me to an elevator that required a special key card. We went up to the 20th floor. The hallway had thick carpet and original artwork on the walls. Everything was quiet and expensive. Jennifer Chen's office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She was a professional-looking Asian woman in her 40s, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Mrs. Richardson," she said, standing up and shaking my hand warmly. "Please sit down. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be nice," I said, my throat suddenly dry. She poured me a glass from a crystal pitcher and sat down across from me. "I know this must be overwhelming," she said gently. "Discovering a trust fund of this size is life-changing." "That's an understatement," I said, and she laughed. "Let me explain everything. Your father, Robert Thompson, was a very smart man. Back in the 1980s, he worked as an engineer for a small tech company. They gave him stock options as part of his compensation. Most people thought the company would fail, but your father believed in their vision. He held on to that stock, and he also invested in real estate in areas of Atlanta that were considered risky at the time." She pulled out a folder and showed me documents. "When he died in 1988, he'd set up this trust specifically for you. His instructions were very clear. The money was to remain invested and untouched until you turned 45 or experienced a major life change like divorce or widowhood. The trust was managed by our firm all these years, growing and compounding." I stared at the papers. My father's signature was at the bottom of the original trust document. He'd signed it just 2 months before he died. "He knew he was sick," I whispered. "Mama never told me that." "The trust document mentions that he had a terminal diagnosis," Jennifer said softly. "He wanted to make sure you were taken care of, even if he couldn't be there to do it himself." Tears filled my eyes. My daddy had loved me. Even knowing he was dying, He'd thought about my future. He'd made sure I'd be okay. The tech company stock split multiple times and is now worth $32 million. The real estate portfolio is worth another $15 million. We've been managing it conservatively, and right now your total assets stand at $47,200,000. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the numbers on the paper. Mrs. Richardson, I need to ask you some questions. The letters we sent to your previous address, did you ever receive any of them? No, I said. I was going through a divorce. My ex-husband must have hidden them from me. Jennifer's face got serious. That's what I was afraid of. Mrs. Richardson, if your ex-husband knew about this trust fund and deliberately hid it during your divorce proceedings, that's fraud. You need to speak to a lawyer immediately. I already have, I said. I'm meeting with her Monday morning. Good. Jennifer looked relieved. I can't give you legal advice, but I can tell you that we have records of every letter we sent, every attempt we made to contact you. If your lawyer needs documentation, we'll provide everything. We spent the next 2 hours going over paperwork. I signed document after document. Jennifer explained investment strategies, tax implications, and set up multiple accounts for me. By the time we finished, my hand was cramping from signing my name so many times. Now, Jennifer said, let's talk about immediate access. I'm setting up a checking account for you with an initial deposit of $500,000. You'll have a debit card and checks by Monday. The rest of the money will remain in investment accounts, but you can access at any time with proper notice. $500,000, just for spending money. There's one more thing, Jennifer said. She pulled out a small box. This was with your father's original trust documents. Inside the box was a letter, yellowed with age, addressed to my daughter, Candace. My hands shook as I opened it. My dearest Candy, it began, and I recognized my father's handwriting from old photos. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're all grown up now. I'm sorry I won't be there to see the woman you become. I'm sorry I won't walk you down the aisle or meet my grandchildren. But I want you to know that I love you more than anything in this world. This money is my way of taking care of you, even though I can't be there. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not worth something. You are my princess, and you always will be. Use this money to build a good life. Be happy. Be free. Love, Daddy. I broke down crying right there in Jennifer Chen's office. She quietly handed me tissues and didn't say anything, just let me cry. When I finally composed myself, Jennifer smiled at me. Your father was a remarkable man. He made sure you'd never have to depend on anyone. I left the bank with a folder full of documents, a temporary debit card, and a feeling I couldn't quite describe. It was like I'd been carrying a heavy weight my whole life, and someone had finally taken it off my shoulders. I was free. On the bus ride home, I got a text from Destiny. Coming by tomorrow at 2 to get my stuff. Make sure you're there. No, hi, Mom. No, how are you? Just orders, like I was her servant. I texted back, I'll be here. That night I went to my laptop and ordered groceries online. Real groceries, not just ramen and canned soup. I ordered fresh vegetables, good meat, ingredients for the meals I used to cook when I had a real kitchen. I even ordered some nice wine. Then I treated myself to something I hadn't done in months. I ordered pizza from my favorite place, the one that delivered. The one I'd stopped ordering from because it was too expensive. When it arrived, I sat on my couch and ate it straight from the box, watching a movie on my laptop. It was simple, but it felt like luxury. Saturday morning, I woke up feeling different, stronger. I cleaned my apartment, did my laundry, and actually enjoyed it. This wasn't the house Deshawn had taken from me, but it was mine. My space. A place where nobody could tell me I was worthless. At 1:45 p.m., my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting Destiny until 2, but when I opened the door, there she was, with Deshawn. Dad said I shouldn't come alone. Destiny said, walking past me into the apartment without even looking at me. He said you might try to guilt trip me or something. Deshawn stood in the doorway, looking around my small apartment with obvious disgust. Wow, Candy. This is even sadder than I imagined. You really landed in the gutter, didn't you? I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him I knew what he'd done, that I knew about the letters, that I was worth $47 million, and his little fraud scheme was about to blow up in his face. But I remembered Patricia Sterling's words. Don't let him know. Let him think he won. What do you want, Deshawn? I asked tiredly. Just making sure my daughter gets her things safely. Can't have you trying to hold her stuff hostage for attention, he smirked. Although I don't know what you'd do with a bunch of teenage clothes anyway. It's not like you're going anywhere nice. Destiny came out of the bedroom carrying a bag of clothes. Got everything, she said to her father, ignoring me completely. Destiny, I said softly, we need to talk. No, we don't, she said, finally looking at me. Her eyes were cold. Dad told me everything. How you were always lazy, how you never appreciated what he did for us, how you're trying to play the victim now. That's not true, I started, but Deshawn cut me off. Don't, he said sharply. Don't try to manipulate our daughter with your lies. You had 22 years to be a good wife, Candy. You failed. Now leave us alone and move on with your pathetic little life. They walked out. Destiny didn't even say goodbye. I stood there in my empty apartment. And for a moment, the old pain came back. The feeling that maybe they were right. Maybe I was worthless. Maybe... No. I shook my head. That was the old Candace thinking. The Candace who'd been beaten down for so long she believed the lies. The new Candace knew the truth. I texted Tamika. Can you come over? I need to talk to someone. She showed up 30 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a container of her famous mac and cheese. Girl, I could tell from your text that you needed comfort food, she said, pulling me into a hug. We sat on my couch, eating and talking. I wanted so badly to tell her about the money, about the trust fund, about everything. But I couldn't. Not yet. Deshawn came by with Destiny today, I said instead. They treated me like garbage. Tamika's face got hard. Those kids don't know how good they had it with you. You gave up everything for them, Candy. Everything. And this is how they repay you? Destiny wouldn't even look at me, Tam. My own baby girl. She's 16 and brainwashed by her daddy, but she'll figure it out eventually. Kids always do. When she's older and has her own family, she'll realize what she lost. Will she, though? I asked quietly. What if they never realize? What if I lose them forever? Tamika put down her wine glass and took my hand. Then they lose you forever. And that's their loss, not yours. You are worth more than how they treat you. You hear me? You are worth something. If only she knew how right she was. Sunday, I went to church. I'd been going to New Hope Baptist since I moved to the neighborhood, but I'd been so depressed lately that I'd missed the last few weeks. When I walked in, several people hugged me and asked where I'd been. Just going through some things, I said. But I'm back now. Pastor Williams preached about perseverance and faith. Sometimes, he said, God lets us walk through the valley so we can appreciate the mountaintop. Sometimes he lets us feel empty, so we remember that he's the one who fills us up. Don't despise your difficult season, church. Your breakthrough is coming. I felt like he was talking directly to me. After service, a woman I'd seen before but never really talked to approached me. Her name was Gloria, and she was probably in her 60s, with gray locks and kind eyes. Honey, I don't mean to be in your business, she said, but I can see you're going through something. If you ever need to talk or pray, here's my number. She handed me a slip of paper with her phone number written in neat handwriting. Thank you, I said, touched by her kindness. We women got to stick together, Gloria said with a knowing smile. especially when life tries to knock us down. Monday morning, I put on the same black dress I'd worn to the bank and took a taxi to Patricia Sterling's office. I could afford taxis now. I could afford a lot of things. Her law office was in Midtown, in a building almost as nice as the bank. The receptionist led me to Patricia's office, which was filled with bookshelves and framed degrees from prestigious law schools. Patricia herself was even more impressive in person than her photo suggested. She wore a sharp navy suit and had her natural hair styled in an elegant twist. When she shook my hand, her grip was firm and confident. "Mrs. Richardson, please sit down. I've spent the weekend reviewing everything you told me, and I've already started drafting our motion." She laid out papers on her desk. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we're filing an emergency motion to set aside the divorce decree based on fraud, material misrepresentation, and concealment of assets. We're arguing that Deshawn knew about your trust fund and deliberately hid it from you and the court." "Can we prove that?" I asked. "The bank has records of every letter they sent. We'll subpoena those records and show that the letters went to your marital home while you were still living there. We'll show the timeline, how Deshawn suddenly wanted a divorce 3 days after the first letter arrived. We'll show how his lawyer rushed the proceedings and how Deshawn personally handled all the mail during your separation. It's all circumstantial, but together it paints a very clear picture." She pulled out another document. "Second, we're demanding a full accounting of all marital assets and business income. I've already found some interesting things. Did you know that your husband's car dealership made $700,000 last year? Yet he claimed poverty during the divorce and said he could barely afford minimal spousal support." "700,000?" I gasped. "He told me the business was struggling." "Another lie. We're going to tear apart every claim he made during your divorce. The house you built together, we're getting it back. The business you helped him start, we're getting your share. Every single thing he took from you, we're taking back. And then we're suing him personally for damages." "How long will this take?" I asked. "If we're lucky and he doesn't fight too hard, maybe 6 months. If he fights, it could be a year or more. But Mrs. Richardson, I need you to understand something. This is going to get ugly. When Deshawn realizes what's happening, he's going to panic. He might try to hide assets. He might try to intimidate you. He'll definitely try to turn your children even more against you. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" I thought about my father's letter, about being his princess, about being free. "I'm sure," I said firmly. "Good," Patricia smiled. It was a dangerous smile, the smile of a woman about to go to war. "Let's destroy him." We spent 3 hours going over everything. I gave Patricia copies of every text message, every email, every document I had. She recorded my testimony about the hidden letters and the rushed divorce proceedings. By the time we finished, she had enough to build a case that would bury Deshawn. "I'll file the motion tomorrow morning," Patricia said as I was leaving. "Once it's filed, Deshawn will be served with papers within 48 hours. That's when things are going to get interesting." I went home feeling like I was floating. Everything was falling into place. Justice was coming. Tuesday morning, I was drinking coffee in my apartment when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Is this Candace Richardson?" "Yes." "This is Timothy Davis from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I'm doing a story on Deshawn Richardson and his car dealership business. I understand you're his ex-wife. Would you be willing to answer some questions?" My heart started racing. "What kind of questions?" "Well, I've received some interesting information about Mr. Richardson's business practices. Several former employees have come forward claiming he's been committing fraud, hiding income, and mistreating workers. I'm wondering if you experienced any of that during your marriage." I almost dropped the phone. Someone was investigating Deshawn. Someone was digging into his business. I can't comment right now," I said. "I'm sorry." "I understand. But if you change your mind, here's my number. Some of these allegations are serious, Mrs. Richardson. If they're true, your ex-husband could be facing criminal charges." After I hung up, I immediately called Patricia. "I just got a call from a reporter," I said. "He's investigating Deshawn for fraud." "Interesting," Patricia said. "That might work in our favor. The more public pressure on Deshawn, the more likely he is to settle quickly and quietly. Don't talk to any reporters yet, but save that number. We might need it later." Wednesday morning, I was reading on my couch when someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, a man in a suit was standing there holding a manila envelope. "Candace Richardson?" "Yes?" "You've been served." He handed me the envelope and walked away. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a legal document from Deshawn's lawyer. He was suing me for defamation and harassment. The document claimed I'd been spreading malicious lies about Deshawn and his business. It claimed I'd been contacting his employees and clients to damage his reputation. It demanded that I cease all contact with anyone associated with Deshawn and pay $50,000 in damages. None of it was true. I hadn't talked to anyone about Deshawn except my lawyer and Tamika. I called Patricia immediately. "He's trying to intimidate you," she said calmly. "This lawsuit is garbage. He can't prove any of it because it's not true. This is actually good news." "How is this good news?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Because it means he's scared. He knows something is coming and he's trying to strike first. Don't worry, Mrs. Richardson. I'll file a response, and we'll use this as more evidence of his bad faith. Keep your head down and don't engage with him at all." That night, I got a text from Marcus Jr., my son. "Mom, what's going on? Dad says you're trying to sue him and ruin his business. He says you're making up lies about him. Is that true?" My heart broke. My own son, believing his father's lies. I texted back carefully. "It's complicated, Marcus. There are things you don't know about the divorce. But I promise you, I'm not lying about anything. I love you." He didn't respond. Thursday, Patricia called me with news. "We're filing the motion tomorrow morning. By Friday afternoon, Deshawn will have the papers. Are you ready?" "I'm ready," I said, even though my hands were shaking. Friday morning, I went to the law office to sign the final motion. It was 60 pages long, detailing every lie Deshawn had told, every asset he'd hidden, every way he'd committed fraud. "Once he gets these papers," Patricia said, "he's going to know you found out about the trust fund. He's going to know that you know everything. His whole world is about to blow up." "Good," I said. Friday afternoon, I was at home when my phone started ringing. First, it was Deshawn's number. I didn't answer. Then it was his lawyer's number. I didn't answer. Then it was Jasmine, my oldest daughter. I answered that one. "Mom, what the hell did you do?" Jasmine screamed at me. "Dad just got some crazy legal papers saying you're trying to take everything from him. He's losing his mind." "Jasmine, I need you to listen to me. No! I'm tired of listening to you play victim. Dad gave you a fair settlement, and now you're being greedy and vindictive. How could you do this to our family?" "There are things you don't know," I started, but she cut me off. "I don't want to hear it. You're selfish, Mom. You always have been. Dad was right about you." She hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone. My children hated me. They all hated me. And Deshawn had won, even though I was about to take everything from him. He'd taken my kids. My phone rang again. This time it was Deshawn himself. Against my better judgment, I answered. "You vindictive bitch," he snarled. "You think you're so smart? You think you can come after me? I'm going to destroy you, Candace. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what a lying, manipulative—" "I know about the letters, Deshawn," I said quietly, cutting him off. Silence. "I know you hid the letters from the bank. I know you knew about my trust fund. I know you orchestrated the entire divorce to steal from me, and now I'm taking everything back." More silence. Then he laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "You can't prove anything. It's your word against mine. And who's the judge going to believe? The successful businessman or the bitter ex-wife who's clearly delusional? We'll see, I said, and hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of my apartment building. Then another text. Be careful, Candace. Accidents happen. I stared at that text, my blood running cold. Was Deshaun threatening me? Was he actually threatening me? I forwarded the text to Patricia immediately. She called me back within 5 minutes. File a police report right now. This is criminal. He's threatening you. I went to the police station and filed a report. The officer who took my statement looked bored until I showed him the texts and explained about the divorce case. Then his expression changed. Ma'am, do you feel safe in your home? I don't know, I admitted. Let me give you some numbers. Domestic violence resources, security companies, and keep your doors locked. I went home feeling scared for the first time. Deshaun had always been cruel with words, but physical threats? That was new. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound made me jump. Was that footsteps in the hallway? Was someone trying my door? At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. You have 24 hours to drop the lawsuit, or your children will find out exactly what kind of mother you really are. I have photos, Candace. Photos that will destroy you. I stared at that text, confused. What photos? I'd never done anything wrong. I'd been a faithful wife and a good mother. What could he possibly... Then it hit me. He was bluffing. He was trying to scare me into backing down because he knew he was caught. I texted back, do whatever you want. I'm not dropping anything. Then I turned off my phone and tried to sleep. Saturday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my door. When I looked through the peephole, it was Destiny. She was alone this time, and she looked upset. I opened the door. Destiny! She pushed past me into the apartment. Is it true? She demanded. Is it true that you have millions of dollars and you've been hiding it? My stomach dropped. How did you... I overheard Dad on the phone last night. He was screaming about a trust fund and $47 million. He said you'd been lying about being poor. He said... Her voice broke. Is it true, Mom? I looked at my daughter, at her angry, confused face, at the tears in her eyes, and I realized this was the moment. The moment when everything would either fall apart or come together. Yes, I said simply. It's true. Destiny stood in my living room, tears streaming down her face. $47 million, Mom? And you didn't tell us? You let us think you were poor? You let us feel sorry for Dad? Sit down, I said quietly. Let me explain everything. I don't want to sit down. I want to know why you lied to us. I didn't lie, I said, my voice steady. I found out about the money the same day the divorce was finalized, the day your father called me pathetic on the courthouse steps. Destiny froze. What? The bank called me 2 hours after I signed the divorce papers. That's when I learned about the trust fund my father left me. The trust fund your father knew about and hid from me during the divorce. I pulled out my phone and showed her the timeline. The bank's emails showing when they sent the first letter. The divorce filing date just 3 days later. All the evidence Patricia had compiled. Your father saw the letters from the bank, I continued. He knew I was about to get millions of dollars, so he rushed the divorce, took everything we built together and made sure I walked away with nothing. He committed fraud, Destiny. He stole from me. Destiny's face went pale. No, Dad wouldn't. He said you were lazy and worthless. He lied, I said simply. About everything. Who do you think raised you? Who cooked every meal? Who stayed up with you when you were sick? Who helped you with your homework? Who gave up her dreams so your father could build his business? But Dad said, your father said a lot of things. But ask yourself this, baby. In 16 years, did you ever see me be lazy? Did you ever go hungry? Did your clothes ever go unwashed? Was your homework ever not checked? Did I ever miss a single one of your dance recitals or school events? Destiny was crying harder now. No. I gave your father 22 years of my life. I gave him 3 beautiful children. I supported his dreams and put mine aside. And when he found out I was about to have my own money, he threw me away like garbage. He made sure I'd have nothing. He humiliated me in public. He turned my own children against me. My voice cracked. He took everything, Destiny, including you. Mom, Destiny collapsed onto my couch, sobbing. I said such terrible things to you. I was so mean. I sat down next to her and pulled her into my arms. She didn't resist. She just cried into my shoulder like she used to when she was little. You were manipulated, I said softly. Your father is very good at manipulation, but now you know the truth. I heard him on the phone last night, Destiny said between sobs. He was talking to someone about hiding money, about how you couldn't prove anything. And then he said if you didn't back down, he'd make sure we never spoke to you again. He said he'd tell us you abused us or something. Mom, he was planning to lie about you. I held my daughter tighter. I know, baby. I know. What are you going to do? I'm going to court. I'm going to prove what he did. And I'm going to get back what he stole from me. Destiny pulled back and looked at me. Can I help? Can I testify or something? I can tell them about the phone call. I can tell them he's been lying. Hope bloomed in my chest. Are you sure? Your father won't be happy. I don't care, Destiny said fiercely. He lied to me. He made me treat my own mother like garbage. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. It's okay, baby. You're here now. That's what matters. We sat there for a long time, just holding each other. Then Destiny's phone started ringing. It was Deshawn. Don't answer, I said. Not yet. Let's talk to my lawyer first. Monday morning, Destiny and I went to Patricia Sterling's office together. Patricia's eyes lit up when I explained that Destiny wanted to testify. This is excellent, Patricia said. A child witness testifying about overhearing financial fraud conversations? That's powerful. Deshawn's whole case depends on claiming you're vindictive and lying. But if his own daughter contradicts him, when is the court hearing? I asked. 2 weeks. Judge Morrison is taking this very seriously because of the fraud allegations. It's going to be a full evidentiary hearing, not just a motion. Both sides will present witnesses and evidence. What should I expect? Deshawn's lawyer will try to paint you as a gold digger who's making up stories. They'll try to claim you knew about the trust fund all along and hid it yourself. They'll attack your character. It's going to be brutal. I looked at Destiny, then back at Patricia. I can handle brutal. I've been handling brutal for 22 years. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Jasmine and Marcus Jr. refused to talk to me, even when Destiny tried to explain what was really happening. Deshawn had convinced them I was manipulating their little sister. The reporter from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published his story about Deshawn's business. Local car dealer accused of fraud and worker exploitation was the headline. The article detailed complaints from former employees about unpaid overtime, harassment, and accounting irregularities. Deshawn's business started falling apart. Customers canceled orders. His biggest investor pulled out. His fancy lawyer suddenly became a lot less confident. 3 days before the hearing, I got a call from Deshawn himself. "Candace, we need to talk," he said. His voice was different, not mocking anymore, almost scared. "Talk to my lawyer," I said. "Please, just listen. I'll give you the house back. And $1 million. Just drop the lawsuit and the fraud claims. Please." $1 million. 2 weeks ago, that would have seemed like all the money in the world. Now it was insulting. "No," I said. $2 million then. And the house. And I'll split the business profits with you. 50-50. "No. Candace, please." His voice cracked. If this goes to court, I'm ruined. The judge could overturn the entire divorce. I could lose everything. They might even press criminal charges." "Yes," I said calmly. "That's exactly what's going to happen." "You vindictive bit—" I hung up. That night, Gloria from church called me. We'd been talking regularly, and I'd told her some of what was happening. Not everything, but enough. "Baby, I'm praying for you," she said. "I know court is in a few days. Remember, justice might be slow, but it always comes. And when it does, stand tall. You deserve every bit of what's rightfully yours." "Thank you, Gloria. That means a lot. And honey, whatever happens with your other children, don't you lose sleep. Truth always comes to light. They'll see eventually." The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I kept going over everything in my mind. What if the judge didn't believe me? What if Deshawn's lawyer was better than I thought? What if I lost? At 3 a.m., I got up and read my father's letter again. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. Don't let anyone tell you that you're not worth something." I wasn't small. I was worth something. And tomorrow, I was going to prove it. The courthouse was packed. Apparently, the case had gotten attention because of the newspaper article. I saw people with notepads, reporters. I saw some of Deshawn's business associates. I saw Tamika, who'd taken off work to support me. And I saw Deshawn, sitting with his lawyer and Monique, looking nervous. Judge Morrison was a stern-looking black woman in her 60s. She had a reputation for being fair, but tough. When she entered the courtroom, everyone stood. "This is a hearing on a motion to set aside a divorce decree based on allegations of fraud and material misrepresentation," she said. "This is a serious matter. I expect professional conduct from everyone. Let's begin." Patricia stood up. "Your Honor, we'll prove that Mr. Richardson knowingly concealed critical information about a trust fund belonging to Mrs. Richardson during their divorce proceedings. He hid letters, rushed the process, and took marital assets he knew he wasn't entitled to. This is clear fraud." Deshawn's lawyer Peterson stood up. "Your Honor, this is simply a bitter ex-wife who's having seller's remorse. She agreed to the divorce terms. She signed the papers willingly. Now she's making up stories to get more money." "We'll see about that," Judge Morrison said. "Ms. Sterling, call your first witness." Patricia called Jennifer Chen from the bank. Jennifer testified about the letters they'd sent to my marital home. She showed records of exactly when each letter was mailed and what information it contained. The first letter, sent on July 15th, clearly stated the trust fund balance and that Mrs. Richardson would gain access upon her 45th birthday or a major life change such as divorce, Jennifer testified. "And where was this letter sent?" Patricia asked. "To the Richardson marital home on Oak Street." "Who lived at that address in July?" "According to our records, both Mr. and Mrs. Richardson were still living there." Peterson tried to shake her testimony on cross-examination, but Jennifer was solid. The records were clear. Next, Patricia called me to the stand. I was nervous, but I'd practiced my testimony. I told the truth about everything: the marriage, how Deshawn suddenly wanted a divorce, how he'd handled all the mail during our separation, how he'd rushed the proceedings, how I'd only learned about the trust fund after everything was finalized. Peterson came at me hard during cross-examination. "Mrs. Richardson, isn't it true that you're simply upset because you got less in the divorce than you wanted?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm upset because my husband committed fraud. You have no proof he ever saw these alleged letters. He lived in the house when they were sent, he handled all the mail, and he filed for divorce 3 days after the first letter arrived. That's not a coincidence. Or maybe he just fell out of love with you. If that were true, why did he rush the proceedings? Why did his lawyer push so hard for a quick settlement? Why didn't he want a full asset disclosure?" Peterson didn't have a good answer for that. Then Patricia called her surprise witness. Destiny. Deshawn's face went white when he saw his daughter walk to the witness stand. Monique grabbed his arm, whispering urgently, Destiny was sworn in. She looked scared but determined. Destiny Button, can you tell us what you overheard your father say on the phone 2 weeks ago? Patricia asked gently. He was talking to someone about hiding money, Destiny said, her voice shaking but clear. He said my mom couldn't prove anything about letters, and he said if she didn't drop the lawsuit, he'd tell everyone she abused us. He was planning to lie about her. The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order! Your Honor, this is hearsay, Peterson shouted. It's a statement against interest, Patricia countered. It's an exception to the hearsay rule. I'll allow it, Judge Morrison said. Continue, young lady. Destiny told everything. The phone calls, the conversations she'd overheard, how Deshawn had coached her and her siblings about what to say about me. How he'd told them I was worthless and lazy when she knew it wasn't true. Why did you believe him? Patricia asked softly. Because he's my dad, Destiny said, tears rolling down her face. I wanted to believe him, but he lied. About everything. Peterson tried to attack her on cross-examination, suggesting I'd coached her or bribed her. But Destiny held firm. My mom didn't even want me to testify, Destiny said. I insisted, because what my dad did was wrong, and someone had to tell the truth. The final witness was an investigator Patricia had hired. He'd found evidence that Deshawn had accessed my mail during our separation. Security footage from our old neighborhood showing him taking mail from our mailbox even after he'd moved out. Records showing he'd filed a change of address form for me without my knowledge, redirecting my mail to a P.O. box he controlled. By the time all the evidence was presented, even Peterson looked defeated. Judge Morrison called a recess to review everything. We waited for 2 hours. I sat with Destiny and Tamika, holding their hands, praying. Finally, the judge came back. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony, she said. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of divorce fraud I've seen in my career. Mr. Richardson knew about Mrs. Richardson's trust fund. He deliberately hid that information. He rushed the divorce proceedings to prevent discovery. He took marital assets he knew he wasn't entitled to. And according to his own daughter's testimony, he planned to commit perjury if necessary to prevent justice. Deshawn was pale. Monique had her head in her hands. Therefore, Judge Morrison continued, I am setting aside the divorce decree in its entirety. The divorce itself stands, but the property division is void. We will schedule a new hearing to properly divide marital assets, with full disclosure of all finances. Mr. Richardson, you are hereby ordered to return the house to Mrs. Richardson immediately. You are ordered to provide a full accounting of the car dealership business, and I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution for fraud and perjury. The gavel came down. I couldn't breathe. Destiny was hugging me. Tamika was crying. Patricia was smiling her dangerous smile. Furthermore, Judge Morrison added, I am awarding Mrs. Richardson temporary attorney's fees of $100,000 to be paid by Mr. Richardson within 30 days. Court is adjourned. Deshawn stood up, his face red with anger. This is bullshit. You can't... Mr. Richardson, I suggest you sit down and be quiet before I hold you in contempt, Judge Morrison said coldly. You got away with abusing your wife for 22 years. You don't get away with it anymore. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Patricia handled most of them, giving a brief statement about justice and truth. I just held Destiny's hand and smiled. Tamika pulled me aside. Girl, I am so proud of you. You stood up for yourself. You fought back. You won. We won, I corrected her. I couldn't have done this without you. That night, my phone rang. It was Jasmine. Mom? Her voice was small. Destiny told me everything. She showed me the court documents. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face. It's okay, baby. No, it's not okay. I said terrible things to you. I believed Dad's lies, I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were manipulated. But now you know the truth. Can I come see you? Tomorrow, maybe? Yes, I said. Yes, please come. Marcus Jr. called an hour later. He didn't apologize as quickly as his sister, but he admitted he'd been wrong. I should have known Dad was lying, he said. You were always there for us, Mom. Always. I'm sorry I forgot that. 3 weeks later, I moved back into my house. Our house. The house I'd helped design and decorate. The house where I'd raised my children. The house Deshawn had stolen from me. He and Monique had to move out within 48 hours. I heard through Destiny that they'd rented a small apartment across town. That Monique had broken up with him. That his business was failing because of the negative publicity and the fraud investigation. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just nothing. I was free. The new property settlement hearing happened 2 months later. This time, with full disclosure of assets and my trust fund on the table, I got what I deserved. 50% of the car dealership business, a fair division of our savings and retirement accounts, and Deshawn had to pay me $200,000 in damages for the fraud. He looked broken at that hearing. His fancy lawyer had quit, and he had a public defender. His business was under investigation. Some of his former employees were suing him. The IRS was auditing him because of irregularities the court case had revealed. He'd lost everything by trying to take everything from me. 6 months after that first court hearing, I was having Sunday dinner at my house with all 3 of my children. Jasmine was telling a funny story about college. Marcus Jr. was talking about his new job, not at his father's dealership, but at a competing business where he was actually appreciated. Destiny was showing me her report card, straight A's. I'm proud of you all, I said, looking at them. I know this year has been hard, but we made it through. We're stronger now. I'm sorry it took so long for us to see the truth, Mom, Jasmine said quietly. About Dad. About everything. You see it now. That's what matters. What are you going to do with all your money? Marcus Jr. asked. Are you going to travel? Buy fancy stuff? I smiled. Actually, I'm going back to school. Remember how I always wanted to be a teacher? Well, I'm enrolling in an education program. I want to teach elementary school. Really? Destiny's eyes lit up. That's perfect for you, Mom. And I'm setting up a foundation for women going through difficult divorces to help them afford good lawyers and get justice. I'm calling it the Robert Thompson Foundation, after my father. That's beautiful, Mom, Jasmine said, tears in her eyes. After dinner, after my children went home, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine, watching the sunset. My phone rang. It was Gloria from church. Just checking on you, baby, she said. How are you doing? I'm good, Gloria. Really good. I knew you would be. You're a strong woman, Candace. You always were. You just forgot for a while. I remembered, though, I said, smiling. Yes, you did. And now you're flying. I'm proud to know you. After we hung up, I sat there in the quiet evening, thinking about everything that had happened. A year ago, I'd been standing on courthouse steps, broken and defeated, believing I was worthless. Believing Deshawn when he called me pathetic. Now I was here, in my home, with my children back in my life, with $47 million and a future full of possibilities, with dignity and peace and freedom. Deshawn had tried to destroy me. He'd taken everything he could. He'd turned my children against me. He'd humiliated me. He'd lied and cheated and committed fraud. But he'd failed. Because you can't destroy someone who refuses to stay down. You can't break someone who discovers their own worth. You can't defeat someone who fights back with truth and justice on their side, Itsam. I thought about my father's letter, about being his princess, about being free. I was free now, not because of the money, although that helped, but because I'd stood up for myself. I'd fought back. I'd proven my worth, not to Deshawn or anyone else, but to myself. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Just heard the DA is moving forward with criminal charges against Deshawn for fraud. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled. Justice was slow, but it was thorough. I texted back, "Thank you. For everything." "You did this yourself, Candace. I just helped. You're the hero of your own story." I sat there as the sun set completely, the sky turning from orange to purple to deep blue. Somewhere out there, Deshawn was probably angry and bitter, blaming me for his downfall. He'd never understand that he'd destroyed himself. That his own greed and cruelty had been his undoing. But I understood. I understood that kindness matters. That truth matters. That treating people with dignity and respect matters. That you can't build happiness on someone else's pain. I understood that I was worth something. Worth everything, actually. Worth love and respect and justice and peace. And I understood that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's being happy. It's being free. I picked up my wine glass and raised it to the darkening sky. "Thank you, Daddy," I whispered, "for taking care of me, even when you couldn't be here. For teaching me I'm worth something. For giving me the tools to be free." The stars were starting to come out now. Somewhere in this big city, my children were in their homes, hopefully thinking good thoughts. Somewhere, women were going through what I'd gone through, feeling worthless and defeated. Somewhere, justice was being served, slow but sure. And here, in this house, in this moment, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Free, whole, victorious. Not because I'd destroyed someone, but because I'd saved myself. And that, I realized, was the most important victory of all. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.